Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I'm with two of my favorite people in comics that I never get to see. Although we did see each other in Rose City last year, very briefly.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Chris Roberson and Allison Baker. Welcome back, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you. You're in remote locations, both of you,
Yes.
because
Yes.
you're hard at work and everything. So, Chris, the beard is looking groomed. I mean, you're
Yeah.
still, you're a 49er still, but you're not. I was going to introduce you as former President Rutherford B. Hayes.
Well, in these uncertain times, I had to make accommodations for wearing a mask while shopping, and so basically, this is what's left. So this is what fit underneath a mask.
Yeah, I understand, and
But
that's very nice.
There's a
Guys,
little more back here, though. So,
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
I got the starts of a mullet. Absolutely. I cut my bangs. My bangs were coming down here, and I cut them on my own. And seriously, much like, a cat doing something stupid and stuff, that went viral. That I had 15,000, I'm like, really, people? You care about my bangs that much? Okay, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm leaning into it. I'm just going to let this go. Like on week 2, I had trimmed the sides a little bit, thinking, it's going to be a while. And now, like 9 weeks later, I'm like, screw it. Let's just go. Let's see what happens here.
I just wanted to, Allison, of course, you've been rocking short hair for a couple of years now and stuff. So
yes, I'm wearing a hat right now.
that's cool. I did the hat thing, and I have my hat if I need it. But just literally the bangs were driving me crazy.
Yeah,
and
so this is the side swept action. Yeah, I've actually decided to see how bad it can get.
Oh yeah.
I've only trimmed the very back, and that's it.
Impressive.
That's my pandemic hair story for everybody to hear. Very exciting.
I can appreciate that. That's cool. I was going to say, Chris, when you were talking about masks, I don't know about you guys, and I would assume, Chris, in Portland right now and everything, people are being more responsible because of how severely it got hit. Chicago got hit really hard too. In my neighborhood, at first it was 1 out of 3 weren't wearing masks. Now it's 1 out of 3 are wearing masks, and now 2/3 are like, yeah, we don't care. And when they go to stores, they have to because the stores force them to, like the pharmacy or the grocery store. But no, just walking their dogs or walking with their kids, it's like, wow, you guys are jerks.
Yeah, here it's weird because I go to the store like every 2 weeks, basically.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and for the last couple of months, the vast majority of everybody was masked and keeping distant and doing everything right. And like at the liquor store, they only let in like 5 people at a time, and they have the floor marks on the floor.
Yeah,
but when I went last week, there was a larger percentage of mostly younger couples unmasked walking around and chatting. So not only are they're constantly just ejecting whatever's in their mouths.
Right.
When we go for walks in the neighborhood, we're in an area where it's very easy to keep distant. So the vast majority of people that are out walking their dogs or riding bikes or whatever just cross the street, so you don't have to get within 10 yards of somebody else.
Understood. People are checking in. Allison, I hope if this obscures you, I'm going to put them up briefly and then get rid of them and stuff. Oh no, good. All right, it did pull you back. So Wayne Wasseau, a good buddy and stuff, a fine Canadian fan. So it's good to see him.
No, Canadians.
Henry.
And Henry's
Henry.
here, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get into some monkey brain talk, absolutely. So very nice to see you guys, and thank you for chiming in.
This is so fun.
Allison, honestly, I'm glad you said that because I am hearing from some creators that they are kind of getting tired of doing, because I really think a lot of people jumped on. And I'll even confess, my show for 15 years has been audio, and it really was only in the last 10 years. I was telling Allison, actually, Chris, before you came on, that I had the plan this year to do a lot more video, but then I got this opportunity to teach. Mm-hmm. And so I even did the weird online teaching for half the semester as well. But that just wrapped up. And then when I lost the radio gig, it's like, all right, well, now I do have extra time. And it's like, all right, everyone's like, learning a language or playing the guitar or piano or whatever. And I'm like, all right, well, let me just put more time into Word Balloon. And I've been meaning to do more video and stuff. So, here we are. and also mostly like yourselves, I'm like, I'll lean on my friends in terms of that. So I mean, I'm glad you're jazzed to do it, Allison, and Chris, whatever your opinion is.
It's funny.
I don't like it.
I'm just better.
I've been doing so I know a lot of people, particularly that have transplanted from office environments into their homes, are doing a lot of this kind of thing. But for those of us who are already freelance and never talk face to face with anybody, I find that I'm having more virtual face to face conversations now than probably ever. At least for the last 16 years I've been working out of my house.
Sure.
A D&D group game started up, and we meet every week. I mean, when we were meeting I was in another D&D group here in town that met at my house for a few years, and coordinating everybody's schedules was impossible. So if we were lucky, we got together like once a month, but that was super rare. And now everybody is at home. So weekly, 4 hours at a time, once a week. And then, I've gotten some discussions about possible work and whatnot.
Good.
Have led to video calls like this. Like I'm on calls about potential gigs, where previously I might have to, wait for a convention and bump into somebody in a hotel lobby. Now I'm just scheduling calls and doing exactly this.
I hear you. Allison, we're going to get into it more. You've been working on Winona Earp, and I know season 4 and everything. I was talking to my friend Julianne Emery, the actress, and she's on, and I always try to help also promote the fact that she's doing great work. She's on season 6 right now of Bosch on Amazon Prime. And she's great. And we've been friends for years. And she was telling me, much like Chris was saying, that she's surprised and was, despite the shutdown, is still getting a lot of pitch meetings and things, because she's also a writer-producer as well as an actor. So, yeah, it's interesting that development is not really hurting right now, and that, people are still taking meetings and preparing for
development's happening. I mean, the reality is that, everybody's going to run out of content here fairly soon. So that's an interesting challenge for everybody. We were shooting season 4 and we had a planned hiatus for a week that was supposed to be a week long. And I ended up staying through the hiatus in Calgary because I was worried I wasn't going to be able to get back. And then I got out on the last plane back to the US, direct to LAX. So it was, it was. And then I'm now here. So so everybody's just kind of waiting to see what happens. There's so many logistical issues in shooting anything, because it's very hard to distance, especially, and then, not just from the crew perspective, but from an actor's perspective. So I'm not sure how that's going to look, what that's going to look like, or how that's going to end up, but we're just kind of in a holding pattern right now. So
in the short term, a lot of it's going to look like this. They just, I think a week or two ago, the BBC announced that they're doing this new show with David Tennant and Michael Shea.
Describe it. Yep.
It's a sitcom about a theater troupe at home during quarantine, trying to do rehearsals for the play they were going to be staging. That's now not going to be staging. And it's just everybody in their houses on video chat is the show.
I've also heard that they're working, some shows really getting elaborate with green screening and stuff, and punching in backgrounds and things for exteriors. And all the actors will just be, working from home. It's gonna be very interesting. And again, it is weird situations that creativity kicks in, and you get interesting ideas. Even I still have Xfinity cable, and Peacock is streaming on there. And Peacock has a show that I don't think is running on NBC. It's called the At Home Variety Show, and Seth MacFarlane is hosting it. And and it's basically the same sketch format as SNL has been doing. SNL has been very interesting with their solutions. To, and it's been hit and miss. But again, under these weird circumstances, I think it's great, and I applaud them for being creative and coming up with good ideas.
When was SNL ever not hit or miss? You know, I mean, that's
100%. Yeah, you're right, man.
I think there's something. I'm gonna interrupt you, Chris. I think there's something interestingly intimate about, especially the late night shows. I've been watching. I don't usually watch late night shows, and like Stephen Colbert or Seth Meyers or Jimmy Kimmel, and I kind of find it more interesting in that format than. And it's not always successful, but I think that it just depends on who is on and. I like looking and see what everybody's houses look like.
Sure. No, for real.
You know, because that really kind of tells you, like, that's just another element of somebody's personality. You know, like what their surroundings say about them, and so I actually kind of prefer it a little bit.
This week, with both Colbert and Seth Meyers on hiatus, it's been hard. Like I don't like. That's normally what I watch when I make dinner. Like I put on last night's Colbert. And I've been conscious of how much I've relied on it for the last 8 weeks, you know, because I was in the moment like, oh, good, it's time to go watch Colbert.
Sure.
You know, we are definitely all in this together. Yeah.
Well, and again, that's why I always did audio, because I like the intimacy of audio, and literally, like I because I know with my own podcast that I listen to, having the earbuds in, and it's like, okay, they're having, you know, I'm in this conversation virtually. And stuff. So I do like, and again, being a fan of long form, I like doing this way. And I'm sure post-pandemic, I will keep a video component. I'm totally, and in fact, I literally tell all of my guests, if you don't want to do live, that's cool. If you don't want to do video, that's cool. Remender was just on a couple weeks ago. And he's like, do you mind if we just do audio? I'm like, no, that's what I do, man. It's cool. And I mean, I'll still put the audio up on YouTube. But it is kind of interesting. Wayne makes a good observation. The Blacklist used animation to finish an episode that was partially filmed. Yeah. No, again, I think it's.
And
really
that's the thing, as far as development goes. Like everybody's like, oh, animation still can work. So, you know, because it's not very hard to do the audio recording at all remotely. I mean, I've done that. When I did Political Media. You know, our audio was recorded in New York, and we were in Austin. You know, and so all the voiceover talent would either have their own studios or would go into a studio in New York. So everything was remotely done.
There's a new virtual that's and I forget what it's called, but a new platform that I know a lot of voiceover people are using as opposed to ISDN. And it's kind of you know, and I forget what it's called and everything. And you know, I'm guessing you know.
You get that clean signal. I mean, that's the hardest part about it, is like you want the signal to be clean and clear.
Yep.
So yeah.
It's kind of interesting because, you know, ISDN used to be so expensive. And now, again,
I do.
Much like, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and honestly, in radio.
I'm from the olden days.
Me too, buddy. No.
Yes.
And truly, no, my radio station, you know, was set up and everything. And yeah, now again, much like Skype being cheaper than phone calls and stuff, I forget the name of this platform. So it is interesting. Forgive me, Chris. I stepped on you there.
No, it's quite all right. It just occurred to me this past week. That with everybody at home, suddenly all of the creative jobs that traditionally required you to be in a room with people are being done from home.
Absolutely.
Because like I mentioned this on Twitter and Facebook the other day, but like I never thought that like, for example, working in animation, television animation was a realistic, attainable goal for me because I'm in Portland, you know, and like those shows are based out of LA or New York, or maybe like Georgia.
Right, Atlanta,
yeah. But then like, well, wait, now everybody's at their houses. What real difference is there? And when I mentioned that on Facebook, Rob Salkowitz pointed me to an article that he'd written with an interview with the head of a studio who was saying exactly that like now, like it's changing who the potential pool of, you know, contributors could be.
Yep.
Because traditionally, what was the quote? How do you paraphrase it? That traditionally, you had to be better than everybody in the room to work elsewhere remotely. And now you just need to be as good as the people that would be in that room because it's everybody.
Yep. No, it's an
you got a shot now, Roberson.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, man. Absolutely. You know, bring that iZombie credit, you know, calling card and stuff. You know, I have more ideas.
Yeah. No, I mean it's just an interesting thought, because I just mentioned it online and I saw a bunch of people I know were immediately like, "Oh yeah, that's a thing." Because I've done a little bit. I wrote an episode of Red versus Blue that Allison directed.
Oh, no kidding! Sure,
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. I saw that on Netflix. Absolutely, right? Am I right? Isn't that the show?
Yeah, I think it's been on
On
Netflix.
Netflix?
Right?
Has
Oh.
it? I don't know.
Oh.
I thought,
They're-
and I don't know where
They got bought by Warner, so I don't know that that's a streaming. That they were always their own thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that they've been acquired by Warner a number of years ago.
And it was, am I right? It was like a game. It was an animation, but it looked like a game, basically.
Yeah, it was like a Halo Machinima. Is basically what it is.
Yeah. I'm reasonably certain. I think I saw it there. Wayne, or reasonably certain. Wayne says BBC used animation to produce some of the missing parts of episodes of Doctor Who, since they have the audio. Yes, and I've seen those, and they've been pretty good. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad, and I mean, isn't it interesting? I'm a massive classic Doctor Who fan. I have to confess, I really was excited for Jodie Whittaker. I think she's underserved by the writing. I just think there's too many companions, personally. I mean, it's when you have 4 companions, kind of cuts into the Doctor's time, because you got to tell what everybody else is doing too, and it's like.
To me, it feels a lot like Peter Davison's first year.
Interesting, sure, and he had 3 companions, absolutely.
Because Adric was still around, and Tegan.
It's Tegan, sure.
Yeah,
I met them at a convention when I was either in 8th grade or a freshman.
Wow,
and that was very exciting for a young man to meet Dennis and Tegan, because I thought they were both very lovely, and I was like, wow.
I rewatched all of the Tom Baker and Peter Davison episodes. Like about a year ago. Like it took a while, just like an episode a night. And I think it took me like 8 or 9 months, something like that. Yeah. It was worth it.
Yeah, it's interesting what holds up and what doesn't. And I do think the Baker ones do. Some of the Davison ones do. And I'm a big fan of him as the Doctor. I thought he was a great Doctor. Yeah. So, I blew it. When the show was in its 20th anniversary, Baker, Pertwee, and Davison all came to Chicago in separate events, and I went to all of them. And then when it was the 50th anniversary, Davison was at C2E2, and I didn't get to him. And I was really hoping to go. I'm like, I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you, but I saw you 30 years ago when it was the 20th anniversary, and it's amazing we're both here now. It's the 50th anniversary.
Yeah,
because he and Sandra Dickinson, his wife at the time, were just lovely, and I didn't know he was in Hitchhikers, the TV version, and he was the dish of the day, the cow.
Yeah.
And that was hilarious. And Sandra Dickens is like, "Did you recognize Peter as the cow?" Like, no, I didn't. That's amazing. So, but yeah, that was really cool. So, Allison, are you a Doctor Who person or no?
I have dabbled.
Okay.
I have not recently dabbled.
All right, that's great.
But I have watched lots of Doctor Who.
Okay.
I get a lot of things by osmosis with Chris as well.
What I mean, again, you're working on Winona and everything, and certainly, your work with IDW in general and everything. But yeah, what kind of nerd stuff are you into?
What kind of nerd stuff am I into?
Yeah, what do you watch? What do you read? What do you watch?
I haven't been It's hard for me to watch narrative right now.
Because you're working in it, I can appreciate that. It's almost like working at the hardware store and then coming home and diving into a pile of nails or something like that.
Well, right? Yeah, and I'm constantly working with video footage, so I look at a screen all day. So it's like hard for me to really get into like something that's from that I binge or whatever. I'm trying to think what I've watched recently. That was good. I thought the last season of Westworld was great.
Yep, very cool.
Very well done. I know Chris is watching that as well.
Awesome.
I don't know. I feel really lame right now.
No.
I'm a little consumed. I get a little, because I have a huge background in political media as well. So the politics of the world have consumed me a little bit more than I care to admit. But,
I had hoped that we would be
kind
talking
of where
about
my head lives a lot.
No, I wanted to talk about that with you, Allison, because honestly, isn't it? I mean, this is the weirdest time. There is nothing like this in our American political history or in our global political history that I can think of.
No, and I think it's interesting because, people are they'll have pundits on air, cable news and whatnot, and they'll listen to podcasts and whatnot, and it's like they'll try to kind of predict or say, well, there's nothing. There's literally like the only way that you can say like, well, this is going to mean this later, and blah blah blah. There's nothing to compare it to. Like literally nothing about any of this. I mean, there already was a situation where it was outside the game, like, and nobody has ever played this game before. Okay, so all of the models are out the window. And now with the pandemic, I mean, it's I don't know what this campaign looks like.
Yeah.
At all.
No, I hear you. I mean, and
it's
again,
a little scary. And it's not just the presidential. I mean, if you think about it, think about all of the down ballot races that, don't have the wherewithal to have people come and do their media and do their TV ads and, all that stuff that has to happen in a campaign, state senators, state reps, city council, like it's across the board. It's going to be really hard for people to campaign. They're just going to have to reinvent the wheel, basically.
Agreed. But also I do think that they will still use TV and radio as far as advertising, because in fact, the industry, I always follow Inside Radio, that blog, and they were saying that they're, it sounds like, the campaigns are planning, both the down the ballot campaigns and the presidential ones, to spend a lot of money, obviously, on ads.
Yeah, well, radio is not as big of a problem as we talked about, but like, to like go do a shoot with a state senator or a state rep, like that's probably not going to happen, because usually those people don't have a lot of money, and so it's like, well, how do you get a crew together?
True.
To do that, or like volunteers. Usually what happens is the campaign will provide volunteers to be in the spot, basically, like where they're walking in the neighborhood and they're talking to the constituency.
The extras, yeah. Well, you're right.
That it can't happen. So
that's true.
It's problematic.
I strongly suspect that you're going to. I mean, this is what 2020 looks like, both in terms of the reporting on it. I think that we're going to start seeing a lot of campaign spots that are basically just candidates in their living rooms talking into their camera.
Virtual debates.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You can still do debates, and maybe that's going to provide equal footing for those underfunded campaigns.
I mean, the DNC is already talking about having a virtual convention. Because it would be irresponsible to do anything else.
Well, tell that to the other side that, and again, what's going on?
They are,
that conversation.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, Jesus. That business last night with the Pennsylvania State House people.
That got affected,
Yeah.
And I've done races. I've actually done races in Pennsylvania for the State House in my free time.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Currently?
So yeah, I mean, like I know those people. I know people in the State House.
Wow.
It's terrifying.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to.
Well, go ahead, Chris. Forgive me.
Oh no, I'm just
griping.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Until there's a vaccine, I'm not leaving.
No, and again, geez, man, I was prepared to go to San Diego this year and have fostered a very good relationship with Terrificon in Connecticut. And that's a great show, and really a terrific show that's been incredibly beneficial to me, where I'm even helping make the programming. And we were going to have the whole Justice League cast, with the exception of Carl Lumley, do a table read, and Andrea Romano was going to come.
Wow.
So that was going to be great. And I'm already, I'm friends with Susan Eisenberg, Wonder Woman, and got to know Phil Lamar recently. So
Phil's great. I love Phil.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's man, what a mensch! Absolutely,
I love him to death.
So I always gotta point out that Dean Haspiel is watching. God bless you, son. He's always
Dean.
there. All right, Dean. Good to see you, man. Dean shows up anytime I'm doing video, and I really appreciate that. And he will be coming on in the weeks ahead, because he's another friend I can bug and say, Dean, let's do this. So I make fun of him all the time. I was telling, I think Franco or somebody, that Bored to Death, the Jonathan Ames show, that was loosely based on Jonathan's relationships with George Plimpton and Dean, and Zach Galifianakis, played Dean back in Galifianakis's, fat days still. And I'm like, Dean, when somebody plays you on TV, they're supposed to be better looking than you, not worse looking. And he goes, loosely based on me. So, and that's cool. Dean's a handsome man.
I gotta say, like, going on your con thing, like in like March we came back and kept having these conference calls, and it's like, oh, San Diego. I was like, San Diego's not happening, guys. I at one point was like, I run my own call on Thursdays, and I was like, I go, so how do we want to do this? Because I can talk in reality, or we can talk like things are going to be fine, which they're not. What would you rather me do?
Yeah, really. Hey, honestly, Allison, I mean, I don't know. You probably can't say what the plan is moving forward with production if they'd split it up in mini seasons or what. Because we don't know too. I mean, again, who knows?
I actually don't officially know yet, but I can't even talk about anything.
No, that's cool.
Unfortunately, it's not for me to say.
So what are you doing for Winona right now, or prior to the shutdown?
I produce all of the companions that go up on iTunes, like the day after the show airs on.
That's
Sci-Fi.
awesome.
So, I fortunately did a round of interviews prior to our hiatus.
Good.
And so I have enough material. I think I'm good through most of them. I might have to be creative on a couple because there's some people I didn't actually get to interview, and I usually do a couple rounds of interviews where it's not so long at the very end of the show. Like otherwise I would be talking to people for like 2 hours a piece, and that's just exhausting for everybody. So I try to split it up a little bit. And so thank God, because otherwise I wouldn't have anything to produce or have to go up with the show. So so I'm working on those.
That's cool. Chris, I want to see what you've been doing lately as well, but I want to point out because my brain kicked in. I before Stargirl started, Jeff Johns, I reached out and said, "Hey, can we do something?" And he's like, "Absolutely." And I was so glad because literally I hadn't talked to Jeff on the air for 10 years because he's been so busy with everything. And he sent me the first 5 episodes of Stargirl, which was great. And then the night before we were going to talk, I'm like, oh, I got to ask him. And I'm like, Jeff, could we pre-record episode recaps and you could tell me stories about each episode? He's like, that's great. We're doing it. And I'm like, because I thought for sure it was going to be like, I got to check with Warner Brothers and, maybe they're doing something with it. And he's like, no, my show, John. We're doing it. I'm like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I've been doing that. And then also I'm friends with Pat Schumacher, the co-creator of the Harley Quinn animated series. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Patrick, could we do this? And even knowing that they're running on Sci-Fi the first season, I'm like, I can wait. And even I may not do one for season 2. I already had done a one episode where we did the first 2 episodes of the second season. And I'm like, let's go back to the first season because, more people are probably just watching it now on Sci-Fi than maybe have DC streaming. And yeah, we did it for all 13 episodes and it's great. And I'm really glad I did that. So yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. And do you know Allison, Rob Meyer Burnett? There's a lot of Rob Burnett's in TV. There's the Survivor guy, of course. Rob used to produce a lot of special features, and he did them for the Lord of the Rings movies and the X-Men movies and stuff. And so he's special features guy. So yeah, it's been kind of
I love doing it. I shoot the BTS myself, and I love it. I've been with. This has been like I've been shooting these interviews in the BTS for 5 years now, and so very familiar with the crew, and everybody's very comfortable with me. So it's fun. I really enjoy making them. I take a lot of pride in them. I want them to be interesting. If they're interesting to me, then I think they'll be interesting to other people, and I'm pretty particular about that kind of thing. So
I'm with you. No, that's great. That's excellent. All right, Chris. So tell me what's going on, man. I mean, no, and this is I really want to know what both of you guys are doing and stuff. And so, I know you're doing Hellboy stuff right now. So yeah, tell us about the current arc.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard, but there was a pandemic, so we had a number of projects in the works, and then I don't think any of them have been formally announced, so I can hint around the edges of what they are, but they're all Hellboy related, Hellboy adjacent things.
Cool.
Some of which have Hellboy in them. And then in what was it, mid-March? All but one of them were paused.
Sure.
Pencils down.
Yep.
I mean, I'd already written first drafts of all the scripts, so I'd already been paid. But suddenly all the artists that I'm collaborating with didn't have anything to do.
Yeah.
So the good news is, as of yesterday, pencils are back up. People are back to work. So now I have a lot of revisions I have to do. One of them is, I can kind of hint around the edges of them. One of them is kind of a cool departure from what we've done. It is a murder mystery. It's like but in the world of Hellboy, with of course supernatural wackiness happening. That one's been super cool to work on.
Okay.
What other ones can I talk about? I can't really talk about those. But I'm working with, of course, Mike Mignola and a murderer's row of fantastically talented artists.
Beautiful.
Yeah. What else can I talk about?
You had a zombie book come out, didn't you? Like recently?
I did.
Did that book come out yet?
Yeah, that came out. Yeah. So the good people at Rebellion.
I'm not in charge of the marketing.
The good people at Rebellion in the UK, which is both a publishing company but also a video game company, approached me a while back about doing a novel set in the world of their Zombie Army games, which Zombie Army itself is kind of a mod to their World War II sniper game.
Okay.
So it's a ragtag group of multinational allies behind enemy lines fighting Nazi zombies. And I was like, that sounds great.
Exactly. You had me at hello. Exactly.
And then once I was working on the novel, they also publish Judge Dredd and all that goodness.
Sure.
So they approached me about doing a comic that would tie into the game as well.
Great.
So it's currently, it might have just wrapped up or is still ongoing, but it's been running in Judge Dredd magazine for the last few installments.
Great.
And it was kind of cathartic. I spent a good part of last summer writing about a very diverse international crew of world-weary folks wandering around the Swiss Alps killing Nazi zombies. And it was a good way because Nazis are always the bad guys. It's sometimes people seem to forget that part. And then I working on a middle grade prose thing that got super sidelined by all this because I had just started writing it in March. And so I had set aside, it's all my fault, folks, because I had set aside a good 6 weeks in my schedule. I'm going to write this first draft of this book. I was ready to go. And then all of this happened. And somehow I had difficulty concentrating those early weeks on my lighthearted children's adventure story.
Go figure. Exactly.
Where children are walking around by the unescorted outside in the world, having adventure.
Yeah.
But now the comics are back on, and as I said, man, suddenly the possibility of working in other media never really occurred to me because of the location thing. But now I'm letting the universe know that I'm super open to the possibility of doing that kind of thing should it come along.
Cool.
Comics are cool.
That's cool. What about any novels beyond the middle school thing? I mean, are you anything percolating?
Not right now. I mean, I have always wanted to write middle grade stuff. Like my ambitions when I started out was I wanted to write, fun adventure stuff for 8 to 12-year-olds and also adults who like that kind of thing.
Sure.
As being one of myself. And then I just fell into doing all the things that I do, which I really enjoy, but I just forgot for years at a time that was something I wanted to do. And hey, Mitch.
He's like a grown up now. I'm like so proud of him.
Well, he shaved when all this started.
And now he can
I know,
body double
but
for
no,
Carl
like,
Urban.
I cannot tell you guys, like, sorry to segue out of your career woes, Chris. But let's talk about how great Mitch's career is doing.
And we
remember when he was just a baby colorist.
Yeah, so Mitch was the colorist on Stanley's Starborn, which I wrote, and Holly Randolph drew.
Yes.
He is a man. He is a man. And so he and Evan Shaner were like at the table the first Emerald City that we went to, like at the bar the first night.
Right.
Sure.
At the tap house.
Yep.
And I think Francesco Francavilla was there. He was there that weekend.
I miss Francesco. Good dude.
Man, so my current viewing obsession is The Magicians on Sci-Fi, which I had never watched before.
I keep meaning to watch that, but yeah, it looks interesting. Go on.
Well, I remained blissfully ignorant of it until it ended, basically, and so I watched the first few episodes again when all this started, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." And just the other night, there's an episode in season 4 where one of the plot points is there's this comic book anthology. It's a graphic novel anthology, and a character holds it up, and it's Francesco Francavilla did the cover, and
that's great.
It. And I had to pause this TV.
That's great.
Apparently, I'm sure everyone else on the planet has known, at least for a couple of years, that Francesco Francavilla did the art that was on this episode of Sci-Fi. But I'm just now catching up. So I was super excited to see my friend on TV.
That's outstanding. Mitch, Doc, Tom King, Cully Hamner, me and a friend all went during C2E2 and Chris has been there. And I took Chris and I took Danny. I believe Danny joined us as well there. Miller's Pub.
Yeah.
And I love taking people to Miller's Pub, especially now after The Irishman ran on Netflix, because that place totally could have been one of the joints in The Irishman. And and again, C2E2, as I keep referring to it, last con standing. It's weird. So I mentioning Mitch and stuff. And guys, I'm sorry, I don't mean to throw up the comments to throw you. This is something that I'm learning as I'm doing
it's fun because I'm like, oh, hey.
Exactly. Well, that's why, man. It's like, oh, isn't that great? Our friends are watching us, so this is very nice. So now Mitch is terrific, and got to do a solo talk with Mitch, especially now that everything's back on schedule, because he and Doc and Tom obviously killing it on Strange Adventures.
Yeah.
I love Adam Strange. I'm such a massive Adam Strange fan. Any of the space heroes on my wall, you can't see it. I've got I have a right on top of each other. Gabe Hardman did a Captain Comet for me, and then Chris Somney did a Dan Dare, basically the British Flash Gordon for people who don't
those hacks.
Yeah, exactly. And seriously, they are both so beautiful, and and it's funny. I have a different angle. You might be able to see in the background there. That's a Batman animated series print, and then underneath it are 2 Amazing Spider-Man comic strips from the Daily Strip that Stan wrote. His brother drew them. Larry drew them, and Alex Saviuk, he penciled them, and Alex Saviuk finished them. So it's kind of cool that I got the Lieber boys doing Spider-Man together and stuff like that. So, but I have another angle that I eventually use for some shoots where I've got a bunch of my commissioned art, and it's the really heavily inked stuff that will definitely show up well in the background and stuff, as opposed to the impressive bookcase that we see on everybody else's, all the pundits and all the various people that are doing these kind of calls, and it's like, oh, let's.
Well, you just see the wine rack, which is like because of the kitchen there, and then there's a Colleen Coover there.
Hey, that's awesome.
From Edison Rex. So
excellent. And mentioning Edison Rex, it's another thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, and that is the whole monkey brain experience. Because I was literally Peter Krause.
That's a few years too early. What do you think, John?
Yeah, but no. But people have to make those first steps, honestly, Allison, and I'm glad you guys did. And honestly, that the work that came from it, like Edison Rex, like High Crimes, the book that Sabella and Ibrahim did together and stuff. I mean, Those are great books, man. I mean, honestly. So, and I really, it was a good initiative. That maybe you were early, but I mean, honestly,
we were the farm team. We were the farm team for a long time there, which I'm happy to be. I'm happy to. I think it needed to happen. I think somebody needed to do it. Apparently, I guess that was us, and it doesn't need to exist anymore. So it's kind of like we keep
pulled
back from stuff, but
we've been keeping the lights on because Paul and Colleen still are doing Bandette.
Oh, that's great! I didn't realize they were doing it through you guys still. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, the Dark Horse publishes the physical book, but they still release the individual chapters through us.
I hadn't realized that. That's fantastic, and shame on me for not realizing that.
No,
that's
I mean,
it's really not a thing.
It's like, I mean, it's part like, that's our public service is to continue to release that to Comixology, but I am inordinately proud because Bandette would not exist if we hadn't asked for it, because it was not a project that they had long wanted to do. It was, I went to two of my favorite creators in comics and said, do whatever you want and I'll publish it. And they came up with that, which is one of my favorite things in comics ever. Bandette.
Absolutely. No, it's a beautiful book. And it reminds me, and every time I see, I see both of them at shows when I do see them, and I'm always like, guys, you got to come on Word Balloon and talking about this right now. It's like I should have Colleen and Paul on. That'd be great. So, how are they doing? How's Paul doing? I know he's had his eye trouble and stuff like that. Is he doing all right?
He seems well. I mean, we had lunch not too long before all this. I guess it was. I mean, time has dilated in such a weird way that, like,
please.
Stuff that, like, I don't know about you guys, but it seems to me that many of us have stopped using calendars and just use weeks. Like, I know that this is day 4 of week 11 of lockdown.
It's been really weird.
Yeah. Like, I have to look at my phone to see what the calendrical date is when I'm making notes and I want to note down, like, what day I wrote it down.
Doesn't it feel like March lasted forever? And May was like a week.
Yes.
Like
May did go by really, really fast. Well, also, Allison, literally, when you're like, "Hey, if you want, we can come on," it was like 3 a.m. my time, and I'm normally up until 1.
Well, thanks, John, for calling me out on that.
Well, no, I'm sorry, buddy.
It's 1 o'clock my time, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, but my sleep's all over the place, and I did get to bed at a reasonable hour, but then. Literally every day, and partially probably because I was working a lot of overnight radio, my body clock is completely messed up. I take more afternoon and early evening naps than getting normal sleep and stuff. So it's absolutely crazy. Oh, look, man, here's another name that just popped in, and Jerry Ordway, everybody. Absolutely. So good to see you, Jerry. We got to do a video thing. Jerry's got his own podcast that he does with Terrificon's own Mitch Halleck, and I'll have to get Jerry to come on and talk a bit as well. But so and truly, buddy, I wasn't trying to.
I was on. No. It's just like I feel like like I was on like a regular production schedule where we shoot all 12 hours a day or whatever.
Sure.
And then I had other stuff going on, but like when I edit, like it's like a black hole of time. Like it just like. You could spend, I think I just did this piece that's like just under 12 minutes, and the assembly took 2 days, and then I whittled it from 19 down to under 12, and that took 3 days, of lots of hours, so it's like, it just, cause you have to keep watching it, and then all of a sudden it's midnight, and you're like, oh, okay.
I feel like I am uniquely suited. I mean, I'm an introvert who has been working out of the house for 16 years. And I already had to build in routines to structure my day just to get shit done.
Sure.
And to make sure I both in my work time, but also in my leisure time. I structure my leisure time in much the same way. So when this all hit, man, I leaned into that stuff hard. Like I still get up. I sleeping more. Everybody's sleeping more. But my alarm goes off Monday through Friday, and I get up, I get dressed, I make the bed. I come downstairs and clean the kitchen counters. But like
I trained him well.
Yes.
That a girl. Absolutely.
but like in the evening,
I don't get to enjoy it right now, but whatever.
because who knows how long this is going to go on. So I find a book series I enjoy, and so I read a chapter a night because I could read more than that, but then I'd be done. Who wants that?
I'm reading a ton, and not just comics. I'm halfway through James Cagney's autobiography. Amazing. A lot of my favorite kind of subjects of nonfiction usually do lean to old Hollywood, and I'm just fascinated by every story that I can get my hands on. So Bogdanovich's books, I've been reading those. Pretty cool stuff. So
speaking of nonfiction, so I've been working on this documentary thing for a while.
Tell me.
And I'm watching other documentaries.
Okay.
But I watched The Last Dance, which I thought was so well done.
Oh yeah.
I know you appreciate this.
Yeah, well, I have a connection to that story.
Basketball person. I know, but like I'm not a huge, but I mean I'm not from Chicago.
Sure.
I'm not a huge basketball person. I appreciate basketball. I'm a baseball person. But the structure of that narrative was really very well done.
Agreed.
And I just wanted to mention that.
I was working in sports. I was working in sports radio during that whole period, and I'm not in any footage, but a lot of my friends are, and also I got to know the Bulls during that period, and very distantly Jordan and Pippen and Rodman, but certainly a lot John Paxson and Bill Cartwright and Luke Longley and all the guys, really, and especially, the guys that had come up through the system, not so much the Ron Harpers and people like that, but no, it's a great story. Jerry Reinsdorf, I used to imitate Jerry. Well, we really feel we got a great team. And then I'd do that to him, and he'd go, "I really sound like that." I'm like,
"Oh, guy."
I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." And he's like, "I hate the way I sound." I got to tell you, man, I like Reinsdorf a lot. I don't like the narrative of the documentary in the sense that they're picking on Jerry Krause. Jerry Krause was not a nice man, but he is a middle manager. And if you want to know who to blame for the breakup of that team, look to the owners, because all Jerry was doing was being a middle manager and doing their bidding. They crunch the numbers and are like, okay, if we keep this team together, that's going to cut into our profits. We've had 6 championships. Yeah, we're okay. We can move on. And also ride that wave after a championship season of people buying season tickets and the merch and everything like that. So it was very much this team is going to cost too much money for us to hold them together. And again, it's easy. And I have to admit, I haven't watched the last couple of episodes, the final episodes, but it's easy to blame Krause. And they really were blaming Krause throughout the show. And it's like, hey, Krause was just doing their bidding. And as they said, with Pippen's lousy deal, not to get too inside baseball or inside basketball on this, but he did.
No, but yeah, I mean, I understand that.
Yeah, he did, player. And they warned him, hey, man, this is going to screw you in the years to come. He needed the security, and got his personal story about his family. I'll even confess, being in Chicago and covering the team, I had no idea that was happening. And that was really, really sad to have that many family members relying on your income and stuff and unable to work.
Right.
So, but it's fascinating. It's like an incredible story. So that's cool. What can you tell us what you...
I just was really impressed with how that they wove the time difference thing. Anyway.
Yeah. Can you tell us how much can you tell us about the documentary, or you can't tell us what you're working on?
I can tell you a little bit about it. It's been something I've been shooting in the back half of last year. So people know that I'm doing it. I not really announced it or anything, but I've been doing interviews with different people in the Winona fandom, basically about the fandom itself.
That's great.
And so, so I just think it's an wonderfully interesting group of people, and kind of interesting story. So
that's cool.
See what happens.
Would it, because I was going to ask, would it then likely end up on a season package, DVD package, or?
I don't know. That's a conversation that's happening right now on where it's going to go.
I understand. Okay, that's cool. No, that's cool. Hey, seriously, I've been a fan of Bo Smith's writing for decades, literally, as I'm sure we all have, and I'm so happy
He's
that
just the nicest man too. I just
Yes.
adore him.
Good dude, absolutely. So yeah, I'm really
yeah,
happy for
and
the
he's-
success of the show, and that I'm glad it's chugging along, man, because it's a great concept and it's a fun show.
It is, and like I can't even express to you how wonderful the cast and crew and the fans are. It is an amazing group of people all around. It was really interesting for me going back up when we were shooting the first part of season 4, because like I hadn't been up in over a year, and I hadn't seen everybody, and I didn't know if it was going to be weird because like I'm the only person that's not like that's from the studio, or whatever. And but it was just like seeing my friends. It was like we all missed each other, and
Cool.
so it just like nothing changed. Nothing changed. It was really interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just a great group of people. In fact, I was talking to the script supervisor earlier today via Messenger because she's a huge political junkie, and so we would always talk politics on the set.
That's cool. That's excellent. Chris, I know it's been a couple years now since iZombie went off the air, but that's a show that I think people will look back, and obviously its significance and everything. And again, I'm really thrilled with what's happening with the CW and the way that they've been working with the DC and Vertigo properties and stuff. And I think they've been doing a really good job. And I don't know if, again, now that it's a couple years in the rearview mirror, how do you any thoughts and perspective on the show?
The whole thing was an absolutely surreal experience from beginning to end. An overwhelmingly positive one. Like I have nothing negative to say about anything to do with that process. And it was it's good. Having my name on TV on the screen every week for like 5 years was real weird. That was weird. I like
5 seasons, by the way, is really pretty goddamn good, man. In this day and age, when TV can be like chewing gum and then get old really, really fast. Yeah.
Well, I think that Mike and I lucked out so much in, there's so many ways that could have gone badly, but Rob and Diane are such great people, and the cast were all awesome people.
Cool.
And like that employed. So, all the cast and crew were kept gainfully employed for 5 years because of the thing that came out of my brain. And that's crazy. Yeah.
How about going back to forgive me if you've got another thought, because I was going to ask about the comic.
Sure.
And because I literally was talking to Shelley Bond like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I had forgotten that. Oh yeah, she was your editor, right? Yeah. That's great.
Shelley's the reason that book was at Vertigo, that it existed.
Well, like Karen too.
Well, and Karen, but
sure.
Shelley was the one who took it to Karen.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Karen said yes.
Yeah, Karen said yes, but no, honestly, Allison, I agree with Chris in terms of it just seems like Shelley is one of those editors who's like, oh no, pay attention to this person and what they're doing. And literally heard that from Brubaker within the last month. I'm trying to think of who else I just recently. Well, Jim Rugg doing Plain Janes with Cecil Castellucci for the Minx line. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. So it's like, Shelley. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Because I really appreciate it. And Karen is certainly one of these people as well. But I really do appreciate the editors that are kind of the comic book tastemakers, the Warren Simons, the Steve Wackers, the Joan Hiltys.
Well, we got Gilbert Hernandez to do a fill-in issue of iZombie, things like that. And it didn't hurt that Mike was on the book. Sure. That's a draw.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy, the people that we were able to pull in. Darwin Cook did a variant for issue 1. which was crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Darwin. Yeah.
Yeah. So about the comic, it sounded like you were asking me if we'd ever do more. You're heading in that direction, maybe.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, okay. The
Well, the
short
Devo is
version,
gone.
the short version of the story is that back when Shelley was still at Vertigo, they approached us about doing more. And my proviso was like, I was like, well, our book wrapped up. Like our version of that story ended. But I would be perfectly sanguine to come back and do comics that are like Rob and Diane's version of those characters. Like, let's do a comic that looks like that show.
Sure.
And it was, it was such a weird process. Like, DC was afraid to ask Warner Television. Like, they were afraid to step into it.
Go on.
So I ended up.
So we did it.
We just went to them. We went to Rob and Diane and we're like, hey, what do you guys think?
And what did they think?
They were fine with it. Like, so long as
They're like, yeah.
I think what Rob
No
said is,
problem.
as long as he didn't have to do anything, he was fine with it.
Sure.
So we developed this whole thing and we figured it out. And it was pretty blue sky and pie in the sky at that, because I was like, let's set it in between two seasons and then let's open it up. And like, I would do framing sequences and Mike would be the art director. And then we could invite maybe some of the writers from the show want to write a story featuring, maybe one of the actors would like to write a story about their character. And then, Mike could help pick the artist and we do a whole thing and we do it as a mini series and everybody was on board. And then, man, it was like a death of 1,000 cuts, because over the course of the next 6 months, I think, it kept getting whittled away, like in terms of what we were going to do and the number of pages and how long it would be. And then the last sad death knell is it was going to be digital only. I would be the only one writing it. It would be only 80 pages and published in 10 installments of 8 pages each.
And wait for it. And then they're like, oh, but we can't get the money to work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because if you make it digital only, the money doesn't work.
Yeah. And so the thing is, like, at no point, no contracts were ever signed.
Okay.
It was all like a conversation that we were having with DC and with Warner Television and the CW, and it was all lining up. And it got to the point where they were asking for scripts. And I said, we don't have a contract. We don't have a page rate. Like,
because we had the other contract, but we were like, is this the same page rate? Like, is it the same deal? Like, is it like, what are we working off of, guys? And
so I said, I'm just going to hold fire until we have a deal. Or at least, I'll
framework of a deal, if not a deal itself.
I think it was less than 24 hours that I got the call that they weren't doing it. And I'm like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
It would have been cool. Like, I think the thing that I was proposing would have been an interesting little satellite to the TV show.
Sure.
But it is what it is. Because the reality is that the TV show existing gave this whole extended second life to the comic that it would not have had otherwise.
Right.
Totally.
We sold way more copies of that comic after the TV show happened than we ever had before.
Yeah.
And people are still buying it. So the one thing is that, like, when I first read the pilot script, I was a little worried that I was like, fine, this, that's a whole other process. But like, I was worried that anybody that found the show and then went to look for the comic would be offended. Like, what is this silly nonsense? What are these talking chimpanzees and weird dog people? Because it was so different. But then when the show was made, it was so tonally similar to our book. It felt like, the analogy I always use is that identical twins separated at birth and raised in separate homes, because they look identical, but they speak with different accents.
Yeah.
But they have very similar personalities. So what I found in meeting people, it's a question that I'm asked every time I do a signing, every time I'm sitting at a convention table. at least once an hour. Somebody asks me what I think about the TV show.
Sure.
And I tell them that. What's nice is that like people that like the show like the comic because they're like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen because it's totally different, but it's like this other thing that I like, and vice versa. Most people that started with the comic tend to like the TV show, while acknowledging that they're very different beasts.
That's cool. No, and I understand. And isn't it interesting, as you said, that compared to ABC, Disney, and Marvel, Warner Brothers, and this was explained to me by executives at Warner Brothers, that they're not vertically, that it's like they're the same suit of clothes, but the sleeves don't know what the pants are doing.
Yep.
And it's like, really? And it's sadly, yeah, that is. And in fact, in some cases, and again, this is what I got from the executives, like at Cartoon Network, when they were trying to do DC Nation, all of a sudden a new regime comes in at Cartoon Network and they don't want to do DC Nation. Yeah. They want to do more shows like Adventure Time and shows of that nature. Yeah. And I'm glad that they obviously came up with Teen Titans Go that fit both kind of, models and stuff. And I'm really glad now that a lot of DC animation is finding a home at DC Universe streaming. And like I said, with the Harley Quinn show at Sci-Fi and everything.
And that DC Superhero Girl show is so good. It is remarkable. It is laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know what special sauce Lauren Faust, and if anybody doesn't know, Lauren Faust worked on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and then most famously was responsible for the rebirth of My Little Pony.
Yeah.
And she had done the Super Best Friends for the DC Nation short, which was about like Batgirl and Wonder Girl and Supergirl.
Yep.
And the new DC Superhero Girl show, which is running on Cartoon Network, is that kind of take, but it's all DC superheroes. Like the only adults, Batman is an adult, Superman is like probably 19 or 20, and everybody else is in high school. And all the kids go to the same high school, and nobody knows anybody's secret identity except the super best friends. And it's so good. It is hilarious.
No, it's honestly, again, I'm really happy that now, right now, it seems like the suits, because God, the adult humor that Harley Quinn has been able to get away with is shocking. And literally, I'm like, Patrick, they let you do that? Yeah. And there was no pushback from the suits? Nope. And I'm like, that's amazing, because it gets really blue and very adult. And that's good, because Harley Quinn should be a good adult cartoon. And I'm glad that especially the direction that she's gone in since the original Harley Quinn look, and going into the way that it was designed for the games and stuff like that. No, I always say, I used to tell Jimmy and Amanda that I'm like,
are y'all breaking up? Because y'all are breaking up for me.
You're slightly out of focus. Allison, take yourself out of the feed and bring yourself back, and that might clean things up. So if you hit the leave studio button and just for a second, and maybe that'll help calibrate things. I'm just guessing.
I think she's locked.
Oh, okay. Oh, is she frozen? I hope could you hear me, Allison, when I was saying that, or no? I don't know if she can hear me.
I'll text her.
All right.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us, Allison, or no? I'm guessing not, because she's not responding. Oh, all right. So there she goes. Hopefully, and actually, I'll even take her out of the feed, and maybe that will. Yeah, text her, Chris. Absolutely. So yeah, I will continue and say that, I'm really glad that it seems like things have changed, because that conversation with the executives was a good 5 or maybe even 10 years ago or 8 years ago or so. So it seems like things have changed.
It was very frustrating. Like, if there was a frustrating aspect of the whole process, it was that, which was that it was as if they were completely separate entities, as opposed to just different cost centers in the same company. Like you guys can talk to each other. It was something that I ran into when I was writing for DC. That there were several times where, for instance, what was it? There's an issue of Superman where they go to the Fortress of Solidarity, and we meet the Superman of tomorrow.
Yep, which I loved. That was really cool.
Among the things I wanted to put in the background was I wanted to put Bugs Bunny in the Superman suit from the cartoon.
Sure.
Because I thought,
Yeah, that's right. Back in the 40s,
yeah,
they did a
Superman.
Superman parody. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, we're not going to lampshade it. You just stick him in the back. You don't have to address it, but it would be a little gag. And they're like, oh, legal would never go for it. And I was like, you own the character. This company owns that character. And I was just reminded that, and I will never remember the name of the executives involved, but it was like, what, 1975, 76. Head of Warner Brothers wants to do a Superman movie and tells go find who owns the rights to Superman. Not knowing
that they own it.
That was it. Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, she texted you? Okay. That's cool.
No, it's been delivered.
Okay, she took herself out. So
okay.
she's I'm assuming she got your message and everything, and we'll see if she comes back or not. And it's okay. You and I could talk. It's all right. We got shit to talk about. It's all good.
But but I was okay not going back to do more iZombie because when we were doing the book, like I saw the end coming. I could see the writing on the wall. And so I would basically every month or so I would ask Shelley, how much time do we have left here? Like I could see the sales numbers. I knew how these things work. And we were up for an Eisner that year, I think, or something. I can't remember. Was that the year? Maybe.
Okay.
Was that the year I was up for an Eisner? I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Anyway.
But like I was just kind of like spitball, like rough estimating. Okay, we're gonna make it to around 30. So if we can make it to 30 issues, we'll tell the whole story. Like I moved the pieces around. We had to cut some stuff, but otherwise we were gonna get the whole thing in.
Sure.
And then around issue 24 or so, I got the call that we got to issue 28 because that would basically mean a slightly bigger than normal fourth trade, but without having to go to a fifth trade.
I'm with you.
And I was like, all right, I can do it in 28. So there were things that it was far enough in the process that there are things on the covers of those last couple of issues that aren't actually in the book because the cover is already done.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, we've got to cut for time. There's one where there's a big eyeball in a window because there's going to be a kaiju. There was going to be a monster come out of the ocean. And it had been seeded early on in a couple of things. But I was like, man, New Tortoise, the giant kaiju turtle, is not going to make it. We got to cut this thing out because we needed to wrap up all the character stuff.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, I was asking a lot of creators, both with their Image books and in some cases maybe Vertigo books, in terms of everyone got, or not everyone, but like the fact that Azzarello and Riso were able to do 100 bullets and do it for 100 issues. I'm like, is that a feasible, aim anymore? Allison's back in her, she's got a good clear picture. Thank you, buddy.
My internet was just like, nope.
Oh, I know. No, you were getting blurry and choppy, and I'm like, all right, it might clear up, so we'll be okay. And we'll wrap soon anyway, but I'm glad you're back. So we were just talking about, Allison, how Chris was saying about how he had to cut iZombie's original run to 28 issues.
Yeah.
And I was starting to ask, I would ask him, people that had long-going Image books that were, past 20 issues or so. And I'm like, I would imagine it's hard, especially as the shelf got more competitive with other good books that were suddenly the shiny new thing. And, Nick Spencer in Morning Glories was in the 40s or 50s, and Norton and Seeley with Revival and some of these other things. And I'm like, what's the good cutoff and everything? So I don't blame you, Chris, for thinking or knowing that the writing might have been on the wall, the 30 issues. Because, it's, and again, that's five or six trades. Okay, that kind of makes sense. And again, you got cut back to 28. So any sort of longer, do you have any ambitions for a longer story, original story, and how much of that plays into, hey, I might only have 6 issues or 12 issues or whatever?
I'm kind of Charlie Brown on the football with that one because I launched a couple of creator-owned books that were intended to be pretty long. That failed to launch.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was a mistake that I made a few times. It's there's too much beginning here. It like if it had run as long as Lock and Key or something or whatever, like there would have been a good opening. But as one volume, it's not really terribly satisfying. So yeah, I think I'm just gun shy. I think having done that a few times,
I understand.
And who knows? I mean, there is for some of those books now, there's interest in maybe adapting them into other media. So if that were to happen, now suddenly maybe there's the opportunity to go back and do more. Who knows?
Sure. So are you saying that with your own creator-owned stuff that there's a potential, and you're kind of pitching those around for other things, or are you saying for new stuff that you?
No, some of the existing stuff. Like so,
Great.
there has been interest.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but I say this as someone who had a show on CW that ran for 5 seasons. I'm super jaded and skeptical about the whole thing.
I'm happy
because the first time I did this dance, it was super exciting, and it didn't go anywhere. Like this was years ago.
Hi, David. How are you?
See that, David?
Come on, the family show.
And there you go, Kyle, giving a nod to one of your books.
Thanks.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the ones I was thinking of. That is the opening of a long, sprawling epic, and we only did the first chapter. So
sure.
But where was I going? Oh yeah. So
I was with
I
him.
couldn't even remember. I was like,
I was with him. It's all right. I have my coffee. I drank my coffee. I'm all energized now.
So the first time, my first time at bat with this kind of media stuff, I'll even say who it was. There was no money exchange hands, but the Robert Zemeckis' people were looking at adapting one of my comics.
Great.
And that went on for several months. And so there were like lots of conference calls, and there was a showrunner attached, and there was writers and stuff, and then crickets. It just went away. And it wasn't ever even, oh, we changed our mind. Like it literally, I was ghosted by an entire production company. And I was just left like standing there like, oh, I guess it's not happening. I guess that thing that we've been talking about for 6 months is not a thing anymore.
No, it's still blurry. All right.
Am I still blurry?
Yeah,
I don't look blurry here.
Well, I'm glad, and thankfully we can hear you well. But no, it's like you're in witness protection right now.
Oh, good.
So, Ms. X cannot reveal her identity to us.
I feel like that's appropriate.
No, it's a shame.
Sometimes.
No, it's a shame because and really, I was like, oh, this is great. Everyone's clear and it looks good. But it happens, and I'm at least glad that you were able to recalibrate and come back into the conversation. So, but anyway.
Yeah, my internet here is spotty at best.
I understand.
I'm in the Hollywood Hills, and it's just like you can't get a cell signal where I live. Pretty much everything is.
I understand.
Wi-Fi related.
So, Chris, forgive me. I interrupted you, but
how dare you?
I know.
Have you no decency?
Sure.
I have found that if TV deals are going to happen, they happen really fast, or they don't happen at all.
Yeah,
that's been our experience.
Sure.
So jaded was I by all this that to return briefly to the topic of iZombie.
Yes, please.
That whole process, I didn't believe was going to happen the whole time. So from the moment, like Jeff Johns calls me on like a Wednesday night to tell me that Rob Thomas is reading iZombie, I'm like, all right. And then
he was writing the pilot script by the time we got the phone call.
Yeah. So we were on set when they're filming the pilot on Raul Cool's first day, and I was like, it's a shame. These people seem very nice. Like this is not going to happen.
Yeah, I understand.
I know too much about how TV's made, and I know too much about like pilots don't get picked up and stuff like that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like that was still a thing, like where the pilot could have been shot and not be picked up, and so we didn't know,
And even after the upfronts were announced, I was like, we'll see. And then it really wasn't until it was on TV that I was like, oh, I guess this is the thing. This is
Chris,
happening.
I didn't think it was going to make it, and I was stunned. And again, because it was so good,
yeah,
the cast had great chemistry, and you just appreciated what was happening. And it was such a fresh take on the zombie thing. Because, really, after Kirkman and Walking Dead, when people would approach me about coming on the podcast and being like, and I got this great zombie book, I'm like, yeah, guess what? You're a little late to the game, kids. Kirkman beat you to it and is doing it the best. Why is your story any different and stuff? And as you point out, you had a big help, Chris, and rightfully so. The art sells the book. I mean, great stories can be killed by not great art.
Yeah.
So you had a good story, and again, it was different. The TV interpretation became different, but that's the cool thing. And also using Mike's art in the openings and stuff like that. It told you, this is not a normal show. This is an atypical show. And luckily, when the narrative began, it met Mike's art. Frankly,
It's funny. Like I remember really early on doing the Vertigo panel at San Diego, and Karen Berger's moderating, and in the course of it was before the panel, because I said to her, like in the hallway outside or something, we were talking about iZombie. She said something complimentary about it, and I was like, well, I feel a little, I can't remember exactly how I phrased it, but that I always felt a little iffy that they had put the for mature readers on it, because in my mind, I was making an all ages romantic comedy starring Universal monsters as, disaffected millennials. And she was like, don't ever tell anybody that. Like, do not say that to people. And I was like, okay.
Because why?
I don't know. I think it was that, like, I think that the idea of Vertigo doing a romantic comedy was not appealing to her.
Oh, okay.
Not the content of the book, but me phrasing it that way, she thought might be commercial suicide. So that
the book was like totally all ages. It was not a mature reader's book.
No,
it was really
not
nothing. Not even a little bit.
Yeah. So Allison, I mean, and again, much like that with Winona Earp and everything, I mean, it's different from the comic in a very interesting way.
The original comic is very different. But I always think that's a good thing. They have gone in now. IDW for their, we're smart enough to do a comic version of the TV show now, ish.
Yeah.
It's not like completely, I don't think, in continuity, but that's what you do when you get a TV show.
I get it.
It helps sell books.
No, the tail's wagging the dog, but that's okay. Yeah. I mean, when the tail's television, it's a different ballgame. I understand. That makes sense. It is interesting now as these projects move forward. Like Stargirl. I mean, Stargirl really. Have you guys had a chance to watch it?
I've not watched it yet, but I have heard lots of good things.
The timing of the show is so perfect because it is a good family show. Cool. It doesn't talk down to the kids. The kids aren't overly precious, so it's not corny in any way. But especially the lead, Stargirl is absolutely someone that is a doer and very positive and goes to and also just Luke Wilson being Stripesy, the last guy I would cast as Pat Duggan, but having the kid go to the adult and saying, "Hey, we can do this. I need you." And really, it's the kid telling the parent, "I need you because we can do this." And it's really great. Amy Smart's fantastic on the show. All the adults, the villains are terrific. And it is such a Valentine to Justice Society. So it satisfies an old fart like me who was really hoping that it would have fun Easter eggs, and it absolutely does. But I think the kids are enjoying it because they seem, at least to this old man, like relatable kids. And again, that in the best way that like Buffy was good being a teen show that didn't talk down to kids and stuff. So no, it's the right mix. It really seems to be the right mix.
It's on my radar. I'm kind of a freak in that, like, I tend to only watch one thing at a time. So I like to finish a show and then I'll start a new show. And right now, Danny and I in the evenings are watching Deep Space Nine.
Excellent.
We're halfway through season 2, so we got a ways to go.
Oh yeah,
you're still in season 2?
Wow.
Yeah. No, we've got 2 episodes to go in season 2.
Okay.
Feels like y'all been in season 2 for a while, but how many episodes are like? It's like 20, they're long, right?
Like 26 or something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
God, remember when TV had that many episodes in a season?
Well, I remember when they had like 30 episodes in a season or whatever,
Well, I keep doing this annoying thing where we get to the end of the episode and Netflix will like show you what the next one is. And I don't know whose job this was. Somebody at Netflix, their job was to write that. Because the program description for every episode is what is happening in the first 120 seconds of the episode. It's not about what the movie
That's
is
horrible.
about. It's just the first scene.
I'm not paying attention because I've been such a fan of all the Star Trek.
Okay, so see, I have to deliver the metadata for all the iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, everything, right?
Really?
So
Come
like
on.
we make sure that like there are no spoilers in our episode descriptions for that reason.
Well, but that's
You don't want to read down the episode description and then get spoiled by it.
No, but it's not. But it's not
No,
describing what happens. It's just like the opening scene. So one of them is literally
So
like
weird.
Commander Sisko, wearing his formal uniform, is preparing to welcome delegates from this planet. And like, well, yeah, okay, but that's
the opening scene. That's the pre-credit scene. Yeah, I'm with you, man. That's hilarious.
But now that we're kind of past the first episode, the first season's fine. But man, we're starting to get to the good stuff because like next episode is Blood Oath, where all the Klingons come back.
That is such
Oh, yay.
And so when we drop
No, I
out
love
the
that.
episode, I keep saying like, oh wow, that was next. Because
Did
we
you
started watching the show because Danny is like super into Jeffrey Combs as an actor because
that's
of
great.
Reanimator.
Sure.
With the movie Reanimator.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, he's played like 10 different characters in Star Trek, but the best one is this one. So let's watch this show.
Garrick. Yeah. So
He plays
good.
Wayoon.
Oh, excuse me.
Wayoon,
I
yeah.
always get him mixed up with Andrew
Andrew
Robinson.
Robinson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Andrew Robinson is Garrick. Yes, he's Wayoon.
Yeah.
And
He shows up in like episode 1 or 2 of season 3. So we're like a couple of days away from.
oh yeah. Oh no, the Dominion and the Jem'Hadar and the Vorta, all that stuff is
so good.
fantastic.
So good.
And even I have to say, truly, and I don't know if you guys felt this when it was actually airing brand new. I know there were old school Star Trek fans that were just like, this isn't Star Trek.
Yeah.
And even Majel Roddenberry
Yeah.
was like, I don't think Gene would be happy with what they're doing right now
Yeah.
because there was conflict in the show, and obviously Roddenberry's vision of a utopian kind of Earth society. And it's like, you need conflict because that, as you both know, that's where story comes from, is conflict.
Have
Even
you seen,
I know that.
Have you seen the documentary?
I was
What
going
We
to
Left
ask you.
Behind? Yeah.
Loved it. Even saw it in the theater when it was first being premiered and stuff. And and I of course bought the DVD. No, I'm such a massive Deep Space Nine fan, and I got to meet Avery Brooks, offered to buy him a drink, and he totally Captain Sisko'd me, and I felt like Jake Sisko. And he's like, John, you don't need to buy me a drink. We're having a lovely conversation. And literally inside, I became 11 years old. And I'm like,
awesome.
okay, man, listen, I'm going to go away now because I don't want to bother you. But you were great. And because I also loved him as Hawk in Spencer.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw the Mark Wahlberg Spencer movie. It's fine as a Mark Wahlberg detective procedural. It is not Robert Parker's Spencer.
That's what
it
I
is.
heard.
It's very, very different. And that's okay. And I'll tell you now, I give allowances to that movie. I'm a little disappointed. You might have seen, especially Chris. I'm really not a fan of the new Star Treks, and Picard was a big letdown for me in terms of it just didn't hang for me as a story. It didn't make sense.
I'm sorry for you.
I understand, and that's okay. And my friends who love it, God bless you all. That's terrific.
Just don't get Chris talking about Star Wars because we'll never get off.
I'm cool.
Oh no, and so did you not like the sequels, or you did like the sequels?
Oh, I liked them quite a bit.
Okay. Again, I had problems.
Yeah.
I had problems with the last one because again, horses on a Star Destroyer, and also where the hell did that fleet come from?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, it was, and also 3 movies that were made independently and didn't seem to know what the other movies were doing, and that kind of bothered me.
No, you're not wrong. I think that I have so much affection for The Last Jedi, which I think is one of the best movies I've seen in any genre in a long time.
I like The Last Jedi fine.
Well, and what's happened is that's then led me to be super obsessed with Rian Johnson's other stuff. Like, because I had never seen anything.
Oh, he's a great director. I still haven't seen Knives Out, but I mean, he's a great director.
Oh, it's so good. I've watched Knives Out 4 times, man.
Oh, I'll see it.
It's so good. Yeah, and I got into it at the start of all this because that's a long story. I don't want to go down. Doesn't matter. Anyway,
See?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what
Yeah,
we were doing Ryan Johnson as
We
opposed
got to the point where it was like he'd start talking about Star Wars, and Danny would be like, oh. I'd be like, wow.
Man, okay. So one of the bright shining light of my year is that Danny and I got to go to Disneyland right before all this happened because they turned 16, and I was like, well, let's go because we never get to go when it's not super crowded, so we'll go then. And the Star Wars stuff there is just incredible. Like it's you're in Star Wars. Like the Galaxy's Edge is just a surreal thing because you walk in and you're in Star Wars. And Rise of the Resistance, the new Star Wars ride, is more like theater. It's not like a ride. Like there are elements of that. I don't want to spoil anything about it, but there are elements of it where you're just surrounded by cast members, like in uniform, like doing stuff. You're taken prisoner. Like it's stand here and you're being scowled at by like Imperial officers. It's incredible.
Yay.
Cool. That's awesome. All right, enough Star Wars.
That's all I'm gonna say about Star Wars.
All right, I respect that. No, and I'm like that with Star Trek, Allison. So I could like go.
No, I mean, like, but we could talk about Star Trek forever as well. I mean, I'd like to harken back to the fact that when Deep Space Nine was on the air and there was the conflict, it was like they go to like the end of the show and it was like, or the end of the season, it'd be like they were like Enterprise is on fire and stuff.
Yeah, Odo,
it was crazy.
When Odo turned human, absolutely no, or at least humanoid. Like, yeah, no, I agree, and really how they were ahead of the curve. There were other shows like Wise Guy and Prophet and some other shows that had ongoing storylines for like a season or half a season or whatever. But yeah, I really do kind of love that Star Trek was the original, or Deep Space Nine was the original Star Trek binge show.
Yeah,
and I will say though that I feel like it worked better on a week to week basis, or like having a break and having to anticipate the next than it is to watch, because I have watched it a second time, just watching them back to back.
Yeah,
and it feels like it feels like there was like more time between these episodes, but that's only because we had to wait a week or we had to wait like 6 months or something. You know what I mean?
You know what
drove watch the next episode.
What drove me nuts in Chicago watching it was on WGN and they had the Cub games, and so many times because the show would be on Saturday afternoons would be preempted by games. So especially during that final season and that final story arc, it would be the crawl would suddenly appear in the last 5 minutes of the show. And it's like, catch the next episode of Star Trek at a special time, Sunday night at 11:30. And it's like, well, thank God I am seeing this crawl, because I'd likely miss an episode or two if it wasn't for that. And it drove me nuts. And I'm just like, oh, God. And again, thank God for VCRs back in the day, pre DVR days. But yeah.
That is how I watched the early seasons of Deep Space Nine, because Chris had taped them off television.
Sure.
I had video. Yeah.
I understand. And I was always very proud, especially coming from broadcasting, how I could cut out the commercials and anticipate that the show's going to start. And I literally would have the blackout from one scene and then the fade in from the next, and without any commercial, a hint of a commercial in between. I'm like, I'm getting good at this. All right. So whatever. But yeah, I haven't watched The Expanse yet, and I'm hearing nothing but great things about it. I don't know if you guys
that show is so good. That is a very good show.
That's cool.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm hearing nothing, and I'm happy for Tom Jane. I kind of knew him through Tim Bradstreet and would see him a lot at shows and stuff, and he was always really nice. And so I'm really glad that he kind of found his footing, because he's a hell of an actor, and I know he's had some personal troubles and things, and I hope that they are past him, and that again this is like the start of reviving his career and everything, because I think he's a great actor and I think he's a nice guy.
It's a phenomenal cast in general. I mean, like all of them. I was on a panel last year at Emerald City with one of the producers because we were doing a thing about adaptations.
Okay.
And we were kind of opposite sides of the aisle on that. Not in opposition, but the process.
Sure. Yes, of course.
And he mentioned something about how like they had to work around budgetary restraints, and so certain things they would do special effects wise or didn't look exactly the way they wanted it to look. And I was like, I don't understand a word you're saying, because that show is real. Everything on screen is happening.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's true. I believe every second of it. What's crazy is it's like feature level effects. Like
That's great.
on a weekly show.
Well, I think, and again, truly, the two new Star Wars. Well, I think I was going to say two new Star Treks. I think Discovery certainly visually is spectacular looking. I kind of think they did cut a few corners on Picard. Having all the same starships show up in the final battle was like, that's a little cut and paste for me, but whatever. And especially compared to Deep Space Nine, when you get those wonderful scenes of every kind of Federation ship flying off into battle and stuff like that. So yeah, man, it's interesting.
That's broadcast money, man. That's broadcast money.
Well, yeah,
that doesn't exist anymore.
yeah, and again, you're right, and even that syndication model that was able first run syndication, and that's again, I'm a broadcast nerd and always have been my entire life, even before getting into radio, and I am fascinated by the changes that have been happening, since I've been a spectator to it. And then, now even with the podcast, getting to talk to people like yourself, Allison, and also the showrunners that I talk to, like Jeff and Schumacher and people like that. And even Jeff Loeb, as when he was the Marvel executive and everything. No, it's really interesting to me how TV.
Yeah. TV's a weird animal. It doesn't, the money part of it is really confusing and very strange, and I'm still not quite sure how that all works.
Well, and what they counted on, because Franco and I were just doing a podcast, and he's like, I'm really glad that American television is starting to take the British model of, a 10 to 13 episode season as opposed to the 20 to 24. And I'm like, as it was to pay for the back end of all the things up front of making a network show. They relied on the syndication money to pay for it and everything later on. And that model just doesn't exist anymore. I mean,
no, it doesn't.
The few local affiliates that do run reruns of other shows like Scandal and Elementary and stuff, they bury them in the overnight hours. And that fascinates me. I mean, there's one channel, the CW affiliate in Chicago does keep the 10 o'clock for the coasts slot open for those old reruns of hour-long shows. But that's the only exception. Otherwise, it's, all the reality shows and, the crap and the judge shows and all that nonsense.
I think that with the advent of so much content, and this is across the board, and from a business perspective, games, like board games, video games, TV, movies, streaming services, books, comics, think about how much the different things you can consume. You can just go on Twitch and watch somebody do a playthrough. I mean, like people, there's so many different, you can watch us right now on the internet. If you want to, if you're still here.
They are.
There's just, and Chris and I have talked about this as a economic, as like there was at one point in time back in the day when we were talking about broadcast television, 26 episodes, 30 episodes, that's a different business model. And that business model doesn't exist anymore. It's almost like there was at one point, there was and I didn't even go into music. That's a whole other, or sports. You can go on and on and on about it. But there was an entertainment bubble that, it used to be the conduit to get the TV show on the air. It was the three broadcast networks, and maybe a Fox affiliate, or the UHF channels.
Yep.
And, with all the advent of the access becomes where all of that economic stuff kind of lowers and spreads out. Which means that more people can make more things, and more people, and it's more specific. But that means that you're not going to make as much money as you would have if you were doing it in 1974. That's just the reality.
I hear you. No, it's interesting.
But the current circumstances are creating all kinds of interesting solutions. People are doing all kinds of really cool stuff. I love Ben Schwartz and Tom Middleditch, and I love their improv show, Middleditch and Schwartz, which just debuted on Netflix. But lately, they just keep popping up on different video game playthrough stuff on YouTube.
I didn't realize that.
Home. Yeah, everybody's just at their houses, and so it's like Ben Schwartz is on Game Grumps playing some game, and like there's an hour and a half of entertainment if you got nothing else to do.
Sure.
Or Gary Whitta, who was the screenwriter who did Rogue One, started his own late night talk show in Animal Crossing called Animal Talking. And he built a late night set in Animal Crossing, and he has his guests come on as like, so I think, shit.
You mentioned Elijah was on.
Elijah Wood and Danny Trejo. I think like Sting came on and performed a song last week on Animal Talking. It's just insane. Because talk about leveling the playing field. When the late night talk shows are guys at home in their living rooms, like
us,
right? Exactly. Baltazar's been doing a daily drawing and just talking to people like as many artists do. And it's so funny. He's like, I don't call it a stream. That's my TV show. And he goes, that's my show. And it's so funny because, he does it in art speak as he always speaks that way. And I'm like, no, I get it, Artie. You're right. You're absolutely right. And he does. And he dresses for the occasion. He looks like he does when he's in Artist Alley. He looks amazing. And he's smart. And he's really, this is as casual as I've gotten doing these. And usually I make, and again, Chris, back to our facial hair and stuff. Like I said, I can't get past the pupa stage. The way I stay normal is shaving and doing things like that. It's like, because again, you could totally just slough off and look like, Batman during Venom when he's all strung out and stuff and look like hell. And I'm like, no, I'll clean up. And certainly doing the video makes me, make sure that I've combed my hair and look reasonably presentable as best as I can. So it's okay. And but no, you're right. You're absolutely right. The playing field is leveled because of this situation. It's gonna be a long time before things do get normal again. And like we've said, probably not till the vaccine is really distributed and truly does work and everything. Isn't it amazing? My God, this is obviously what I think people were fearful of during the polio decades and things like that.
But how fortunate are we? This is horrible and global, but the mere fact that we have this technology while this is happening,
absolutely,
because the Buck Rogers, Dick Tracy dream of the video call,
yes,
was the thing that we all just ignored. Yeah, like for the years that this technology has existed, be like, that doesn't. I don't want to do that. That's annoying. And now that everybody is so hungry for both entertainment to consume, but also interaction with people.
Agreed.
I was talking to an editor I know in the UK, and he was like, "What have you been up to?" And I'm like, "Well, playing a lot of D&D, man. Because everybody's at home." And he started rattling off the games that he had been getting into with his friends, because everybody's at their houses, and that's my constant refrain. Is like everybody's at home.
Well, I was gonna say for the podcast, occasionally instead of doing the hangout that we're doing and stuff, the Benson sisters and Tom King and I have played old Hollywood trivia, and I have the old silver screen Trivial Pursuit edition, and because I know listeners and viewers want to play along, and that's a hard game. Because it really does go. It was made in 1982.
Yeah.
So
those are my favorite to play though, because
too,
Trivial Pursuit from 1984 is the best.
Yeah. No, I agree, and so to kind of make it a little more contemporary, I included Turner Classic Movies made a trivia book that goes through the modern era and stuff. So occasionally we'll ask each other questions from there. But yeah, it's fun, and truly listeners and viewers have really enjoyed it. And actually, I started doing it before the pandemic on the audio podcast, and it was just fun to pre-record it and throw it up there and stuff. But now, and then I did one with Andraco and Jason Inman and did a superhero oriented one. And Fred Van Lente is going to come on, and he wants to quiz me on a bunch
I love
of
Fred.
stuff. Oh, Freddie's the best, and Crystal. I love Crystal too. She's a doll. I have New York friends that are playwrights and actors, and it was so funny. And I'm like, oh yeah, my buddy Fred, and oh, you might know his wife, Crystal Skillman. And they're like, you know Crystal Skillman? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like,
we met her in Houston, Chris.
Yeah, I remember.
She's awesome, and seriously, I've read her plays. I actually got to perform in one of her plays because she had an off camera or an off stage radio station with a DJ, and she's like, "Would you be the voice of the DJ?" I'm like,
"Oh yeah,
I would be honored to do that. That's amazing, Crystal." But yeah, they're like, she's really an off Broadway force, and they are playwrights and actors, and they're like, Crystal Skillman, and again, not to diminish, we're like, "Oh, Fred's wife, yeah, sure." Because that's how I met her, was she's Fred's wife. And it's like, no, and it's great. And I mean, no, Crystal's been on the podcast and stuff. And God, that King Kirby thing that they did together was so good. Oh man.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's it. But yeah, Freddie's going to come on. I helped him out with his Kickstarter with Ryan, the new animation history that they're doing and stuff.
Oh yeah. I've seen that stuff before.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, they're great. They're great. Listen, guys, it's been over an hour and a half, and poor Allison has been in the witness protection program for half
Am
the
I
show.
still blurry?
Yeah. We miss you, hon. Yeah.
Boo.
Yeah. So, but it's great. But at least your voice is good. And then the audio, the audio still is out performing the video. So really, like, should you scan YouTube numbers? They're not that high. The Facebook, I mean, that's why I'm glad to be on multi-platforms. And right now, simulcasting on Facebook, YouTube.
I think that what you're saying, John, is that I have a face for radio.
Quite the contrary. Absolutely. No. That was my fear about doing video for so long. Was like, do you really want to see, Giant John, on video and everything?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Oh, thanks.
The answer is absolutely yes.
Well, you guys are lovely for saying that, and I appreciate it. And seriously, it's great. And like you were saying, Chris, this is the one positive that this is happening in this era. Can you imagine if it was happening during the 70s? Yeah. And we really would be isolated. And there would even be a lot more panic and trouble, personal trouble for people beyond the physical health issues. There'd be a lot more mental health issues, I think, if we weren't able to connect like this. So Thank God we can. And thank you for doing this. This has been a great. I knew we would have a fun conversation, whether it's on the podcast or the times at the bar, or even when I'm talking to you guys after we've recorded a podcast. We always have good conversations. So thank you for hanging out.
Well, thanks for having us on, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us. It was a pleasure.
Continued success to both of you, and to Danny as well. And yeah, man. We'll do it again. When there's more to talk about and stuff, or even if you want to do another hangout or whatever, or if God, we should do a Star Trek trivia contest. That would be fun.
I might embarrass myself, but I'll try.
Really? Okay, because that's so funny. Hillary Barta is such an old movie fan, and I'm like, Hill, do you want to do movie trivia? I've been doing it with the Bensons and Tom King, and he's like, I love old movies. I love talking about old movies, but if I'm really pressed in a quiz situation. He goes, I'll freeze. So me, him, and Will Pfeiffer are going to be talking Friday night. And I haven't decided if it's going to be a live or a recorded. It depends because, again, some people don't want to be live. They'd rather, just have the comfort of
Hey, if you put together Star Trek trivia, I will try. I was a card-carrying member of the Starfleet fan club in the 80s and a card-carrying member of the Klingon Language Institute in the 90s.
Nice.
Though the only Klingon sentence I learned to speak was I'm not going to attempt it now, but it was I speak Klingon, which was a lie because that was the only thing I could say.
I love it. Is it
and there's also Kapla, which
of course Kapla, absolutely. I love I think it's Garden State where Peter is it Skarsgård? I think it is Peter Skarsgård, and he's dating Gene Smart. And I forget what he says, but it comes out that he's a Star Trek fan, and he says some Klingon thing, and he's like, well, it basically loosely translates to "death to Kirk," and it was just this innocuous line, but I just love that. I'm like I said, I'm a lifelong Star Trek fan since 5 years old, so 50 years, absolutely, man. So, and I'm excited for the Pike show. As negative as I've been about Discovery,
oh yeah,
I swear to you guys, every week I'm like, maybe I'll like this one. I'm open, and maybe the story will turn into a direction
Did
that
you
I'm
watch?
hoping for.
Did you watch the short treks with those characters?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, I'll tell you, man. Again, well, I think the Ensign Mount one was great. It was the best one, I think. They're too obsessed with Spock smiling, and it kind of pisses me off. It's like I'm like, to me, it was like, okay, it's the pilot. They haven't figured out these characters yet. It doesn't need to be explored, Mr. Shaban, respectfully.
Yeah.
But that's just my own take. But also,
agree to disagree.
yeah. But and I'll tell you, and now I will tell you the one that like I didn't think was funny was the H. John Benjamin Tribble episode. I'm like, sorry. I'm like, whatever. And also it's and you know, whatever. What again, agree to disagree. It's okay. All right, Kapla, and great talking.
Yeah.
And and everybody, thanks a lot for watching. And we'll see you next time.